Okay, so I have updated the admin interface. So this is how admins will set up the timer. So that is now updated to include the rotary encoder. Right, so I can turn it on. It's going to say hello. The first thing, with this wiring setup, you want to make sure that you are not powering the LEDs through the data port for the Arduino. So it's going to first prompt you to make sure that you have the USB plugged in and that you have the power on so that the USB bank is powering it. So I'm going to hit yes. It's going to ask you, do you want to use the rotary encoder? This is set up. The rotary encoder is really nice. I like using it. However, if you're using the old design, so V3, where you only have the 2 buttons, it is still compatible with that. So you can select no. So you can use the rotary encoder to select yes or no. You can also use the red button to change it from yes or no. So if you want to use the 2 buttons, use the rotary encoder as no, and you hit blue to accept it. If you do want to use the rotary encoder, then put it as yes and hit blue to accept it. So I'm going to accept the rotary encoder. It's going to load it. It's going to ask, hey, do you want to turn off the LEDs when it's in like a standby mode type situation? So if you want to save some battery time, it's good to say yes there. You could also leave it no, so you know the timer's on. It's up to you. I'm going to say yes. I want to turn the LEDs off. You'll notice that right now, if I hit the blue button to accept it or the red button to change it, it's not working anymore. That's because I selected to use the rotary encoder. So now I have to use the rotary encoder, and then I push the button on the rotary encoder to accept. So now there's some pre-programmed game modes in here, and there's also a custom menu. So there's King of the Hill, Rogue One, Attrition, Death Clicks, Domination, Hold the Hill, Time Reset, a custom, and then just a normal timekeeper. And with the rotary encoder, you can go back and forth. If you were using the 2 buttons, you would just keep hitting red until you find the one that you want, and then you would hit blue to accept it. So I'm going to go through how each of those menus get set up, but that is the basic new interface. All right, so this is how the pre-programmed King of the Hill works. So I'm going to go through setup and talk a little bit about how the game works. So I've already selected to use my rotary encoder, so I'm going to do it with my rotary encoder. So I'm going to hit the button to select King of the Hill. So first thing it wants to know is what's the objective time. So in this pre-programmed King of the Hill game, both red and blue will have the same objective time, and their objective is to run the clock from whatever time you set here down to 0. So like if I wanted them, they'd have to run it down they'd have to control the hill for 3 minutes in order to win. There's no set game length in this game mode. Instead, it is more of an indirect game length, As soon as one team takes control of the hill, that means that the game won't last any longer than 2 times whatever value you set here for the objective. So if it's 3 minutes each, that means that red team could control it for 2 minutes 59 seconds, and then blue team could take control and they could control it for the other 3 minutes, and so you'd essentially get a 6-minute game once one of them hits it. So as soon as one team hits it, when the other team takes control, it goes to them. So that's essentially how that game works. So for purposes of this demonstration, I can use my rotary encoder to change the time. I'm just gonna do 10 seconds, just so I can kind of demonstrate how it works. So I set my time, hit my rotary encoder to accept it, so it starts to load. Now I get to decide how I want to interact with the buttons. I can make players have to hold the button for a certain period of time in order to take control of the hill, or I could set it down to 0. In that case, they would just have to tap the button and they would take control. So I'm going to set it to 0 for this. So again, I put it down at 0, and I hit my rotary encoder to accept that. All right, it wants to know, do you want the timer to do an audio start or end to an audio countdown to start the game? In this instance, I'm going to say no. I don't I don't need you to do that. So I switch it to no, hit my rotary encoder button, right? There's no game length set for this, right? It automatically sends it into preparation mode. So now it is ready for players to play. So you can just set this out there, and as soon as you start the game, players can come and interact with the button right away, right? So I set it to tap, so red team hits the hill, they take control. If I had my speaker set up, you get an audio indication, right? It's counting down, blue team takes control. It saves the red time at 5 seconds, blue team starts to count down, red team takes control. Now they're going down to 4, blue team takes control, blue team hits again, it doesn't do anything, right? It slowly counts down. Once it gets down to 0, right, it would set off an alarm. That alarm will it will start to flash to let you know that they win. It will say blue team wins, right? Now you know who won. So that's the end of the game. Blue team won. They got down to 0 before red team did. Red team still had 3 seconds left. If you want to reset the game, you just hold down both buttons at the same time for 5 seconds. All right. And then it will ask you, do you want to switch the game mode or do you want to run it again? So if I wanted to switch it, I could switch it to something else. In this case, I will just run it again. So I hit no, I don't want to switch game modes, right? Sets it right back into whatever settings I had on the previous game mode. It's ready to go. Blue team or red team can take control. Blue team takes control. Red team takes control. Blue team takes control. There is a little bit of time difference. If it's not an exact clock, but it's good enough. Red team takes control. Blue team takes control. Right. So if they're interacting with it fast enough, they don't actually like count those like milliseconds. It's got to get a full second for it to take control. Right. So in this case, blue team won again. All right. So I can hold both buttons down. It will say, do I want to switch game mode? Yeah, I'll go ahead and switch game mode this time. So again, I use my rotary encoder, hit the button, takes me back to my select menu, and I can select the next game mode. All right, so this is how you play, or how you set up Rogue One and how Rogue One plays. So again, this is the pre-programmed game mode, Rogue One. So I've already selected my rotary encoder so to use my rotary encoder to do the menu. So I'm going to push my rotary encoder button. It's going to load it. All right, so now it wants to know which team do I want to run down the clock. So Rogue One is an asymmetric game. So one team is trying to run down the clock. One team is trying to defend the Death Star plans / prevent them from uploading. So I can switch it to blue or red. I'm gonna do red in this case. So again, and I'm spinning the rotary encoder to make that selection. So I'm gonna hit the rotary encoder to select red. Objective time, how long do I want them to have to do the upload for Rogue One? So the way Rogue One works is you have 2 or 3 flags that represent the Death Star plans that are out in the field, and so the rebels have to attack, and they're trying to capture those flags. They bring those flags back to the upload station, which is the timer. When they get to the upload station, they put the flags there, and then they hit their button to start uploading. And once they start uploading, the Imperials, they can come and stop it by hitting their button, but it just pauses it, and then the rebels can then come and hit it again to start again. So usually for Rogue One, you don't want a really long objective. So normally I would say like a 45-second to like a 1-minute objective is usually pretty good. I'm actually gonna, just for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna put it down 10 seconds for the objective. So I'm gonna go ahead and accept that. I get to choose how I want to interact with the button. Do I want the people to have to hold the button down for a certain period of time before they take control of the hill? Or do I want an instant, right? So I could put it down to 0. If I put it down to 0, that means that as soon as they hit the button, they will take control. In this case, I'm going to make them, they're going to have to hold the button for, we'll say 2 seconds. All right. So I hit the button. All right, I hit the rotary encoder, accept it. So now I have to set the game length. So this game has, there's also like a game timer. So this is what the Imperials are trying to accomplish. They're trying to run out the game length timer. So usually for like, I want to say like for like a 6-minute game is probably, you probably want about a 6-minute game for like a 1-minute objective. It just depends. You'll have to balance it. However, for the purposes of this demo, I'm gonna actually put that down to, we're gonna do 25 seconds. Okay. So I'm gonna hit my button, accept it. It wants to know, do I want to use an audio to do the start countdown? So I can say yes, I want it to count down, or I can say no. In this case, I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. All right. Also, it wants to know, right, for the game length, so not for the objective length, but for the game length, do you want to have an end countdown? Sure, I will do that. Right. It wants to know, so once this is all set up, it's going to go into standby mode. It wants to know if you want to put some kind of start delay on it, right? So for instance, if I have to put this at the hill and I want to start the game, but then I need to make it back to my respawn so that I can actually play in the game too, because who wants to sit out? I can put a start delay on there. So let's say I'm going to put a 3-second delay. Okay, so I'm going to accept that. All right, so it tells me how long my game length is. So my game length is currently set for 25 seconds. It goes into standby mode. So standby mode, you have to hit the red button to get out of it. So as soon as I hit the red button, it's going to start that start delay. And then once that start delay is over, it will start doing the timer countdown. So I can hit the start delay. So I'll go 1, 2, 3.
Now begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So the game starts.
30 seconds remaining.
It starts counting down here, right? So that's the overall game length. Red is in control.
Hill contested. Red team, hill control.
Right, so now red team controls it. Blue team can take control.
Blue team.
10, 8.
So it's doing the audio countdown.
6.
Hill contested. Red.
4, 2, 1. Overtime.
All right, so because the Imperials who are doing the objective are trying to take control, there's an overtime condition.
Game over. Red team win.
So what happened there was the pre-programmed Rogue One is designed so that if the rebels have control of the hill and are uploading the Death Star plans, and the overall game length gets down to 0, it goes into an overtime situation. So as long as the rebels are able to get their upload all the way down to 0, they still win. If after that overtime situation occurs, the Imperials are ever able to take control of the hill, then that would end the game, and the rebels would lose. So once the game's over, this is important since this is an asymmetric game. It is set up so that you can switch sides and the teams will always hit their color button. So to reset the game, I hold both buttons down. All right, it wants to know, do I want to switch the game mode? No, I'm going to run this one again. So no, I'm not switching the game mode, so I hit my Rotary Encoder. All right, it puts it back in standby mode. It's saved all the settings from before, except for because it was asymmetrical, it automatically knows to switch it. So now the rebels are the blue team and the Imperials are the red team. So if I start it, right, 3, 2, 1.
Round begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right, you can see
30 seconds remaining.
You can see that blue team is now the one trying to run down the clock. Right, the game clock is counting down.
Hill contested. Red team, hill
So
control.
red team, they shouldn't ever take control first, but if they do,
Hill
blue team
contested.
takes control.
Blue team.
9, 6, 5,
Red team.
3, 1.
Right. So in that instance, the Imperials had control of when the timer got down to 0, so that automatically ended the game. So that's how Rogue One works. Again, you can hold down both buttons to reset it. Right, it will ask if you want to switch the game mode. No, I'm going to run it again. So I hit my rotary encoder to accept that. Right, I can hit the start. Right, it waits 3 seconds because I put that 3-second start delay. Then it does the audio count.
4, 3, 2, 1. 30 seconds remaining.
Right, it's running down my clock. Right, I'm going to do the overtime again to show you what happens if I put in overtime. So I'm going to let it get down pretty far.
10, 9, 8.
Hill contested. Red
4, 3, 2, 1. Overtime.
Right, it went into overtime. However, if the
Hill contested. Blue team.
right, the Imperials were able to take it before they got that down, so they won in overtime. All right, so that is Rogue One. All right, so now I am going to go over Attrition. So Attrition is a form of team deathmatch. Basically, you are going to set the number of lives that a team has, and then it's going to run down. You really don't need these timers to do this. This can be easily done with like clickers or just flags or anything. You just need something to count lives, and you just have to have a limited number. But since I have these timers, I did set it up for that. So I already chose to use my rotary encoder, so I'm going to accept Attrition. You have to select which team is going to be hitting the button. So you can do blue or red. I'm going to hit red. I can choose how many lives they have. So I have it at 15 right now, but I can go up to 40, or I can go down to 5, whatever I want. I can say however much I want the life pool to be. So I'm going to set it to 16, because why not? Because I have some audio, which is why I'm doing that. Right, if you want to, you can have it do like a start down for the game. A lot of times with Attrition, I don't do that. It just depends. Since you have to have 2 of these, you have to have 1 at each respawn. Usually I wouldn't use the start down there, so I'm going to say no there. So the game length's not set. If I did use that start down, then it could have a delay, but since I didn't use a start down and there's no game length, it automatically just sets it up. So now it's ready for players to interact with, right? You start the game, players go, when they get tagged out, they come back, they click in. So right, we have red team has 16 lives remaining. So
15 lives left.
they hit their timer, it does a little flash. 14, 13, 12, 11,
10 lives
10
left.
lives, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5,
5 lives left.
4, 3, 2, 1. So I only have 1 life left.
No lives left.
Right, as soon as no lives left, it ends, says game's over. Sends that alarm, starts flashing, lets you know that the lives are gone. If you want to reset it, because this timer is linked to a specific team color, it is programmed so that you switch sides of the field. So if I hold both buttons for 5 seconds, right, it will reset it. It will let me choose if I want to switch to game mode. In this case, I'm going to say no, I don't want to switch to game mode. That's right, then it goes and loads everything I have in there, but because of it's designed to let you switch this team sides, this one is now the blue timer. That way, right, you don't have to move the timer from side to side, and you're allowed to switch sides. If you wanted to keep teams on the same side, it's just not programmed for that, and so you either have to reset it up, which is pretty easy, or you could just move the timers, whatever you want to do. Right, so now blue.
15 lives left.
So now blue does theirs.
10 lives left.
And I actually don't know if I have the audio sounds for those ones
5
up
lives
on the
left.
screen yet.
No lives left.
Right, so as soon as a team is down to 0, they lose. Hold both buttons for 5 seconds. Do you want to switch game modes? Yes, I'll switch to my game mode. All right, and that is Attrition. All right, so this is how you set up death clicks. Death clicks is just a team deathmatch game. You really don't need this timer to do death clicks. It just, since I have it, I programmed it for it. We use it at my local club. So I've already set it up, so I'm using my Rotary Encoder. So I push my Rotary Encoder button. You have to select which team you're going to record the deaths with. So I can change it to red or blue. I'll just put on red, so I'm going to say accept that. Do I want to limit the game length? Right. If you're going to have this hooked up to a speaker so that people can hear it, then it's good to limit the game length. Even if you limit the game length, people can still come and click in after the game's over. But it just depends on how you're going to end the game. So oftentimes we have another timer that we use to do the game length, so I don't need that. So I'm just going to put no there. Right, if you are using this with a speaker, then you can set up a audio start timer. I'm not going to do that either, so I'm going to put that to no. Right, I didn't set a game length, so it lets me know that. Since I didn't set a game length, it automatically goes right into the game mode. Right, so it says red team number of deaths. So each time red hits the button, it just starts counting up. So, right, and then once the game's over, everyone clicks in that died, and then they can compare times. Whichever team has the least number of deaths wins. After it's over, you can reset it. So if you hold both buttons down for 5 seconds, it will go to that first, and then it will reset it. So maybe it's like 10 seconds. You have to hold it down for a while. It will ask you if you want to switch to game mode. So one thing to know for these kind of asymmetric ones where only one team's hitting the button, it is set up to automatically switch which team hits it, so that you can leave this timer in place, and then the teams can just switch sides. So if I choose to continue with this game mode, so do I want to switch game mode? No, I'm going to accept it. Right, it's going to reload what I already programmed into it, but this time it already is smart enough to know that, hey, blue side is actually going to be on this side. So, right, if the timer is set up so that each time teams switch sides, but they continue to hit the button that they want. So now blue would continue to hit the button until the game's over. Right, once the game's all the way over, hold it down for 5 seconds, and then it's going to do that alarm. Flash screen, hold it down again, and right now it's ready to switch. I can say, yep, I want to switch the game mode. So there we go. That's how you do death clicks. All right, so this is how you set up Domination. Domination is meant to be played with multiple timers. You can use it for one. Basically, Domination, just instead of counting down, it's going to count up, and you're going to have a game length. So some people might like to use it for King of the Hill. It's up to you. So I've already got my Rotary Encoder enabled, so I'm going to select Domination. I can choose, right, do I want to have to tap it, or do I want to have to hold it for X amount of time? So I'm going to set it down to 0, so I can just tap it. Right, for this, there's an overall game length, so I have to set that. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put that down to 15 seconds. If I want to, I can do an audio countdown to start it. I'm going to just turn that off for now. Oh, no. Do I want to do the end countdown? I'm just going to turn that off for now, so it's not going to do the end countdown. Do I want to have any kind of start delay, right? So if I need to, as an admin, I need to start it but I'm going to play as well, so I can put a delay in there so that I can start it at wherever spot it's supposed to be at, but then have time to get back to my my respawn. A lot of times when you do that, it's good to use the actual start announcement so that you can hear it. Just depends on what you want to do, but yeah, you can set a start delay. I'm going to just say no for now, so I'm going to leave that at 0. Right, so it tells me what my overall game length is. Goes into standby mode. Since this has an actual game length, you do need to put it in standby mode. So as soon as you hit the red button, that's when it's gonna initialize everything, and then it will start counting down. So if I hit red button, right, it's initializing everything. Now you can see that it's starting to count down from that 15 seconds.
Blue team, hill control.
Right, blue takes control, red takes control. Right, it just counts up the time, and it's gonna keep counting up until the game timer goes off. Right, so it will, when the game timer goes off, it will flash whichever color team had control of the hill at the end, not necessarily who has the most points. You have to go look at the screen to see who had the most points. So that's Domination. You can reset it by holding both buttons down for 5 seconds. Ask if you want to switch to game mode. No, I want to run it again, so I'm just going to hit yes, or I'm going to hit no, I want to run it again. Puts it back in standby mode. Right, I can then take it out of standby mode. It just uses the exact same settings that you had before. Right, starts to count down.
Blue team, hill control.
So here I'll show you that blue team has control of it for the longest time. Right, so they have control most of the time. And then red takes, right. Red takes control right at the end. They don't even get a second in there. Right, it still shows it as red because red is the end. So this allows you to play Domination a couple of ways. You can play the version where it's whoever controls the timer at the end of the game wins, or you can. It also has the amount of time that each team controls it. So up to you. You can decide what you want to do, and then right, you can just reset it by holding both buttons down for 5 seconds. Ask if you want to switch game modes. So in this case, I'm going to hit yes. So I hit yes. And now I'm ready to go set up another game mode. All right, so this is how you set up Hold the Hill. Hold the Hill is a game that has a set game length, and each team is trying to hold the hill for the longest period of time. In this game mode, you have to continuously hold the button to hold the hill. So I'll go ahead and select it. So I got hold the hill. I got to set my game length. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to set that to 25 seconds. Right, it wants to know if I want to use my audio countdown. Sure, I'll go ahead and use the audio countdown this time. It wants to know if I want to use the end countdown. Yeah, I'll go ahead and use the end countdown this time. It wants to know if I want to use this, have a start delay, right? So if I, as an admin, need to go start this at the hill and then make it back to my respawn so I can start with everyone else, I might want to put a start delay in there, put a 30-second start delay. So I'm gonna put a 5-second start delay. All right, so my game length is 25. So now it's in standby mode. It's waiting for me as the admin to start the game. So I put in its location. I hit the red button to start it. It's going to have a 5-second delay. So it's going to flash lights in 5 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Round begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right, so that used the
30 seconds remaining.
That used the audio countdown. So now it's doing that. So
Red team, hill control.
I hold the hill. I have to actually hold the button the whole time. As soon as I let go of the button,
Hill contested.
it pauses the time.
Blue team, hill control.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
Red
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. So whichever team is holding, if a team is holding the hill when it goes off, that will, the color will still light up that. But you have to go look at the screen to see who actually held the hill for the longest time. I can reset it by holding down both buttons for 5 seconds. Do I want to switch to game mode? No, I'm going to run this one again. So I just hit my Rotary Encoder, accept that. I'm assuming that's what you enabled. Again, I can hit the red button to start the game mode. Right after it flashes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the start delay.
Begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right, that's the audio cue to start the
30
game.
seconds remaining.
Blue team, hill control.
Right, so blue team can be in control.
Hill contested. Red team, hill control. Hill contested. Red team, hill.
10, 9,
Hill.
8,
Blue. Hill.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right, in this instance, since neither team was holding the hill when it came to the countdown, it doesn't flash their team color. So it'll only flash that color if they're actually holding the hill when it happens. So, and that is hold the hill. So you actually have to continuously hold the button. Again, you can reset it by holding both buttons down for 5 seconds. That will reset it. And I can say, do I want to switch game mode? I can say yes. And then, right, I can go switch to whatever game mode I want. All right, that is hold the hill. All right, so this is how you set up time resets. So time reset is a pre-programmed game mode in which one team is trying to run down a objective time, whereas the other team is trying to just defend for the full length of the game. The difference here is that the team that's trying to do the objective has to hold it for a consecutive period of time. So rather than saving their progress, this one actually will reset it every time. So I've got my Rotary Encoder enabled, so I can use that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that to select time resets. I have to pick which team's going to try and run down the objective. So I'm going to pick blue. So I move it to blue and hit the encoder to select that. The objective time, so how long do they have to run it down? So something like this, I'm going to say, just for purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to say 15 seconds. Right. I also get to choose how I interact with the button. Do I want to force them to hold it down for a certain period of time before they take control? So this is hold button X to control, so it's how long they have to hold it. I can set it to like 5 seconds, however many seconds I want. Or I can set it to 0, in which case, as soon as they hit the button, it will take control. So I'm going to set it to 0. I got to choose my overall game length. So this is how long the defenders are trying to defend for. So I'll set that to 25 seconds. It wants to know if I want to use the audio countdown. So if I want to, I can have the timer play through a speaker and audio start so that everyone starts at the same time. I'm going to hit no here. Right, for the overall game length, I can select whether or not I want to do a countdown. It won't do it for the objective, but it will do it for the overall game length. So yeah, we'll go ahead and say yes. Right, do I want to put some kind of start delay in there, right? If I have to go put this out somewhere and start it to start the overall game length, do I want to have a delay so that I can make it back to like my starting point? So, right, that way the admins can play too if they want to. For this instance, I'm not going to do any kind of start delay. So it tells me how long the game length limit is set to, puts it in standby mode so it's ready to go. I just have to hit the red button.
30 seconds remaining.
All right, so now it's counting down here. It sees how much blue time has to hold it.
Blue team, hill control.
All right, so blue's taking control. Red team stops them.
Control.
Blue takes
team,
control.
hill.
10,
It starts
9,
from the beginning again.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Overtime.
All right, because blue team was in control of it, this actually has overtime enabled. So blue team can still win even if the game limit's over, as long as
Over.
red
Blue
team
win.
So as long as the red team doesn't take control of the hill, then they can still win. So to reset it, you just hold both buttons down for 5 seconds. Do I want to switch the game mode? No, I'm going to run that again. Again, this is set up so that teams switch side and they still can continue to hit their button. So it's smart enough to say, hey, they switch sides. So now I'm switching it to the other team that's trying to run it down. So in this case, red's going to be trying to run down the clock now.
30 seconds remaining.
All right, so if red takes control,
control,
blue team can take control. Right, so blue team's in control now. All right, the game length's getting down. I'm gonna give it a little bit more.
10, 9, 8.
Red team takes control. It resets their time.
5, 4, 3,
2, 1. Overtime. But now it's in overtime, so as long as red holds it, they're gonna win. But if blue takes it, as soon as blue stops them, that ends the game because they win in overtime. All right, again, I can reset it. So it resets. Switch game mode. No, I don't want to switch the game mode. Standby, ready to go.
30 seconds remaining.
All right, blue team's in control. If it just runs out of time, then red team would win because it's run out of time. If blue runs it down, blue team wins. That's basically how it works.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, so that is time reset. All right, so this is how you set up Timekeeper. Timekeeper is not actually a game mode. It's just a way of controlling the length of the time using the audio speakers to do that. So I've got my Rotary Encoder enabled, so I can go ahead and just click that button. All right, I can set the game length. So for the purposes of this, I'm going to set it down to, we'll go with 15 seconds. All right, 15 seconds. Do I want to use the audio to start the game? So since I have this hooked up to a loudspeaker, I'm going to say, yeah, I'll go ahead and use that. Do I want to have it do the end countdown too? Yeah, so I'm going to hit yes. I want it to do an end countdown. It gives me an option. Do you want to have a delay before you hit it? Because right when it's ready, it's going to go into standby mode. And so if I'm an admin, but I also want to play, and maybe I need this located at a different location than a respawn, I can put in a delay so that I can hit it, and then that gives me enough time to get over to my respawn. So we'll say I'm going to do a 5-second delay. All right, so it's got my game length. Goes into standby mode. I say, all right, let's go ahead and start the game. So I hit the button. Then I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Count begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Start the game.
30 seconds remaining.
All right, it'll count down normally. Yeah.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, so it's just a timer to control how long a game is with some fun audio cues. All right, if I want to reset it, I just hit both buttons. Hold both buttons for 5 seconds. That resets it. I can go switch it to a different game mode, or I can just run that again. All right, so I built this timer to have the ability to kind of make your own game modes because, right, I love making game modes. I want other people to make their own game modes, so you can customize how you want the games to run some. So if you select custom, so I'm going to select custom, the first thing it's going to want to know is how do you want to interact with the timer button. So you can have it where you just have to tap the button to take control of the hill. You can switch it to hold X for X seconds, so you have to hold the button down for 1 second, 2 seconds, whatever you set it to. or you can set it up so that you have to continuously hold the button. If you're going to do the continuous hold, then you only have two options. It's symmetric for the two teams, and they're either just going to count up or down. But if you do tap or hold for X seconds, it gives you some extra options. So I'm going to do tap, so I'm going to accept that one. Right, so I can choose, do I want the objective for both teams to count down the timer? Do I want both teams to count up the timer? Do I want it where both teams, you have to hold it for a consecutive time instead of cumulative? So count up and count down, those are cumulative times that you're holding it for. When it's a reset, that means that you have to hold it consecutively for however amount of time. There's the pause and countdown. This is basically Rogue One, right? So one team is, when they hit the button, it pauses the other team's time. But the team that is attacking, when they hit the button, it starts counting down. It's cumulative. So you can do that. There's also the same basic game, but instead of a cumulative time, you have to have a consecutive time. So you have to hold it for a consecutive X amount of time in order to win. So that's a reset and countdown. So yeah, those are the different versions that you can select. So like for instance, if I hit both resets, right, I have to select how much I want the objective time to be. So I'm going to set blue's objective time to, we'll say 15 seconds, right? Do I want to have a different time for red? So right, I don't have to have the same times for both teams. I can set different times. Do I want red to be different? Sure, I'll make red different this time. Normally you probably wouldn't do that, but for the sakes of this demonstration, I'm going to. This is also if you have something happen in the middle of a game and you need to reset the game and you kind of know what the times were, you can also use this to kind of make a custom time. So we'll do 30 seconds for red. Right, you can select if you want to use the audio start. I'm going to say no. Right, for both reset, there's no game length that is on the initial timer. So it will automatically, and since I didn't select to have the audio game start the game, it automatically goes into the mode where it's ready and it's waiting for players. So you can see red has 30 seconds that they have to hold it, blue has 15. Right, so red can come up.
Red team, hill control.
Right, they start taking control. I set it for tap, so they took control. Right, it's counting down.
Blue team, hill control.
Blue takes control, right? Red made it to 24 seconds, but they didn't make it all the way. So when red comes back,
Red team,
it
hill
goes
control.
back to 30 and starts counting down from 30. Right, blue made it to 9, but they didn't make it all the way. So when
team,
blue comes
hill
back,
control.
it jumped back up to the initial 15. Now it's going to count down. As soon as it counts all the way down to 0, blue team wins, or red team wins, whichever team gets it to 0 first.
Game over. Blue team, win.
And then, yeah, you can reset it by holding both buttons down. Right, then it's going to ask you if you want to switch the game mode. I could run it again that way, or I could say no, or I could say yes, I want to switch game modes. Right, I can go back to my custom. I could pick a different interaction, so I'm going to hold it for X this time. I can do count down, count up. Let's see here. So I got like pause, count down. So we're gonna accept that. So in this one, right, pause, count down. That's an asymmetric game. One team is trying to do something different than the other team. So you have to select which team's gonna run down the clock. Right. So this is the team that has the objective to do like the short thing, whereas the other team is the team that's like defending till the end of the clock. So I'm gonna select red in this case. Right, I select their objective. So red needs to hold the hill for a cumulative of 20 seconds, right? Now I got my button, so I can select how long I want that button to be held. So I'm gonna put it at, we'll do 2 seconds that they have to hold the button down. Right, I set my overall game length. So I'm gonna set my game length to, we'll do 30 seconds. Right, oh, and so in like Rogue One, which is pre-programmed, or like Time Reset, which is pre-programmed, those ones automatically have overtime enabled. If you don't want overtime enabled, you can do that through here. So I can turn off overtime. Personally, I think overtime is better to have. Right, it asks if I want to use this audio starter. No, I don't want to do that. Right, do I want to use the end countdown? Sure, I will use the end countdown. Do I want to put some kind of delay there, right? So since there's a game length, if I want as an admin to put a delay so that to give me time to get to my respawn so I can play in the game too, I can put a delay in there. I'm not going to put one in here for this purpose. All right, so it has a game length, goes into standby mode. So now it's in standby mode. I hit the red button to take it out of standby mode.
30 seconds remaining.
Right, and it goes in to start counting down. So
Hill contested. Hill contested.
So I gotta hold it for 2 seconds.
Red team, hill control. Hill contested. Blue team, hill control.
Right, so it's there.
Hill contested. Red.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right, so in this instance, blue was trying to just get the game length all the way down. They were just trying to pause the timer for red. That's why it was called pause countdown. Red was trying to count down their timer. I disabled overtime, which is why even though red had control of the hill, when the game timer went out, they still lost. Right, it always flashes the color of the team that had control of the hill when the time ended up. So even though blue team wins because they got down to 0, it is flashing red. So you do need to go look at the screen to figure that out. Once again, I can hold both buttons and that will reset it. I can choose to switch to game mode. Go back to custom. Right, and I can go through, and so there's some. Okay, so I have updated the admin interface. So this is how admins will set up the timer. So I hit the blue button to say, yes, I have that. I'm gonna use the 2 buttons. I'm gonna not use the rotary encoder this time. So I'm gonna hit yes with blue. I'm gonna turn my LEDs. I could hit no with the blue, red, or yes. Or I can cycle through the list. With red, and so then I accept with blue. So I can again cycle through the list with red. So I'm gonna just go to timekeeper, so I can accept that. Right, so when I go to set the game length, it sets the game length similar to how the old system worked, where it's gonna start with that first digit. And I can hit red, and I just have to keep going until I get to the point. And then when I get to a point that I want, then I hit blue, and it goes to the next digit. Right. So again, red just lets me cycle through the lists. So right, do I want to use the start audio? Right. So you can use the buttons. Red lets you cycle through options. Blue is how you actually accept an option. So you can kind of play with it. I think most of them, the time resets, it does it based off of the digit like it did before. Although there's a couple things that are new that it might just add up. I don't remember exactly. So you'll have to play with that. I really recommend getting the rotary encoder. It's just really nice.